The truth most people avoid hearing is this: the reason people disrespect you is not because they are stronger, smarter, or better than you. It's because somewhere along the way, you allowed it. And today, that ends. Because once you understand this one simple Stoic principle, no one will ever look at you the same way again. There is a silent rule in life that governs how people treat you. People don't respect words. They respect standards. If you tolerate disrespect even once, you teach others how to treat you again and again. But the moment you decide internally that certain behavior is no longer acceptable, everything begins to change. Not loudly, not dramatically, but powerfully. Stoicism teaches something most people ignore. You cannot control how others act, but you can control what you accept. And that is where your power lies. When you stop reacting emotionally and start responding with calm authority, you shift the dynamic instantly. The person who once tried to test you will begin to hesitate. Most people think respect comes from being liked. That is a mistake. Respect comes from boundaries, from the quiet confidence that says, "I know my worth, and I will not negotiate it." You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove anything. Your presence alone becomes enough. Think about the moments when someone crossed a line with you. Maybe you laughed it off. Maybe you stayed silent. Maybe you didn't want conflict. But every time you did that, you sent a message. Not just to them, but to yourself. And that message was that your standards are flexible. But here's the shift. The moment you decide that your peace, your dignity, and your self-respect are non-negotiable, you begin to move differently. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You react less, but your silence commands attention. You stop chasing approval, and people start respecting your distance. Stoics understood that emotional control is power. When someone tries to provoke you, they are looking for a reaction. When you deny them that reaction, you take control of the situation. Calmness is not weakness. It is dominance in its purest form. This doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming selective. Not everyone deserves your time. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. And definitely not everyone deserves a response. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away without explaining yourself. When you begin to live this way, something interesting happens. The same people who once overlooked you begin to notice you. The same people who once tested you begin to respect you. Not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped allowing what you once tolerated. There is a quiet strength in knowing that you don't need validation. That you don't need to win every argument. That you don't need to respond to every opinion. Your value is not determined by others. It is defined by you, and reinforced by your actions every single day. So if you want to reach a point where no one disrespects you, remember this. Set your standards, protect your peace, control your reactions, and never compromise your self-respect for temporary comfort. Because once people see that you respect yourself, they have no choice but to do the same. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think setting boundaries means becoming aggressive, loud, or confrontational. That's not power. That's insecurity trying to wear a mask of strength. True power is quiet. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply exists, and others feel it. When you truly respect yourself, you don't chase people who ignore you. You don't argue with people who misunderstand you. And you don't try to convince people of your worth. You step back, observe, and let your actions speak louder than anything you could ever say. There is something deeply unsettling about a person who cannot be easily shaken. Someone who doesn't react impulsively. Someone who doesn't raise their voice. Someone who doesn't feel the need to respond immediately. That kind of person forces others to adjust their behavior. Because they realize they are no longer in control. And that's the shift you need to make. You see, disrespect often comes from people testing limits. Consciously or unconsciously, they are asking one question. How far can I go with this person? And your reaction gives them the answer every single time. If you respond with anger, they see emotion they can manipulate. If you respond with silence and confidence, they see a boundary they cannot cross. This is why the Stoics emphasized self-mastery above everything else. Because when you master yourself, no one else can control you. And when no one can control you, they cannot disrespect you without consequence. But let's go deeper. Respect is not something you demand. It's something you embody. It shows in the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself in uncomfortable situations. It shows in your ability to remain composed when others lose control. Imagine two people in the same situation. One reacts instantly, raising their voice, trying to defend themselves. The other stays calm, listens, and responds with clarity and control. Who do you think commands more respect in that moment? It's always the one who remains steady. Because stability signals strength. And people are naturally drawn to strength, even if they don't understand why. Now, here's something most people won't tell you. When you start changing your behavior, not everyone will like it. Some people will feel uncomfortable. Some will even push harder, trying to get a reaction out of you like they used to. That's not a sign you're doing something wrong. That's a sign your boundaries are working. When people can no longer access the version of you they were used to, they either adjust or they leave. And both outcomes are necessary for your growth. You are not here to be convenient for others. You are here to live with integrity. And integrity means aligning your actions with your values, even when it's uncomfortable. There will be moments when staying silent feels difficult. Moments when walking away feels like losing. Moments when not reacting feels unnatural. But in those moments, remind yourself of this. You are not losing control. You are taking control. Because every time you choose discipline over impulse, you strengthen your position. You build a reputation. Not just in the eyes of others, but within yourself. And that internal reputation matters more than anything. Because once you truly believe in your own standards, you no longer need external validation. You stop seeking approval. You stop fearing rejection. And most importantly, you stop tolerating disrespect. Let's talk about presence. There are people who walk into a room and immediately command respect without saying a word. It's not about appearance. It's not about status. It's about energy. They are grounded. They are calm. They are certain of who they are. And that certainty is what people respond to. You can develop that same presence. It starts with how you think. If you constantly doubt yourself, others will sense it. If you constantly seek approval, others will take advantage of it. But when you stand firm in your identity, people recognize that they cannot easily influence you. And that changes everything. Another key principle is detachment. The less you need something, the more power you have in any situation. If you need someone's approval, they have power over you. If you need to win every argument, you are controlled by your ego. If you need to be liked by everyone, you will compromise yourself. But when you let go of that need, you become free. Free to walk away. Free to say no, free to choose yourself without guilt. And that freedom is what commands respect. Because people respect those who respect themselves enough to walk away from anything that does not serve them. Now think about this carefully. Every time you allow disrespect, you are not just affecting that one moment. You are shaping a pattern. A pattern that repeats until you decide to break it. And breaking it requires courage. It requires you to act differently than you have in the past. It requires you to be uncomfortable for a while. It requires you to let go of who you were so you can become who you need to be. But once you do, you will never go back. Because you will realize something powerful. Peace is more valuable than approval. Respect is more valuable than attention. And self-control is more powerful than any reaction. So the next time someone tries to test you, remember this. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to react immediately. You don't need to lower yourself to their level. Pause. Breathe. Respond with clarity, or don't respond at all, because sometimes the strongest response is silence. And sometimes the greatest power is walking away without looking back. There is another level to this that most people never reach, and that is emotional independence. When your mood depends on how others treat you, you are giving away your power without realizing it. One rude comment can ruin your day. One moment of disrespect can stay in your mind for hours. And slowly, without noticing, you become a prisoner of other people's behavior. But the moment you decide that your emotional state belongs to you, everything changes. You stop reacting automatically. You stop taking things personally. You stop allowing small people to have a big impact on your life. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming stable, because stability is rare, and anything rare is respected. Most people are predictable. They react the same way every time. Anger meets anger. Disrespect meets louder disrespect. Ego meets ego, and nothing ever changes. But when you break that pattern, you become unpredictable in the best way possible. Someone expects you to react. You stay calm. Someone expects you to argue. You stay silent. Someone expects you to chase. You walk away. And suddenly, they don't know how to deal with you anymore. That confusion creates distance. That distance creates respect. Now let's talk about silence, because silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. People think silence means weakness. They think if you don't respond, you've lost. But in reality, silence is control. It means you are not easily provoked. It means you choose your battles carefully. Not everything deserves your attention. And that's a powerful realization. Because attention is your most valuable currency. Wherever you place it, you give energy. And whatever you give energy to grows. So when you give attention to disrespect, you are feeding it. When you withdraw attention, you weaken it. That's why sometimes the most effective response is no response at all. Now, this doesn't mean you tolerate everything. There is a difference between silence and acceptance. Silence is a strategy. Acceptance is surrender. And you should never surrender your self-respect. There will be moments when you need to speak. Moments when a clear, calm, direct response is necessary. And when you do speak, your words should be simple, firm, and controlled. No emotion, no over-explaining, no need to convince, just clarity. Because the more you explain yourself, the more it can look like you're seeking approval. And you don't need approval when you are certain of your standards. Let's go deeper into certainty. Certainty is what makes your presence powerful. It's not about being perfect. It's about being grounded in who you are. When you are uncertain, people sense it. They test you. They push boundaries. They look for cracks. But when you are certain, even without saying anything, people think twice before crossing you. And that certainty is built over time. It comes from keeping your word to yourself. It comes from doing what you say you will do. It comes from living in alignment with your values. Every small action builds your identity. And your identity shapes how others treat you. Now imagine this. You wake up every day knowing that you will not tolerate disrespect. Not in words, not in actions, not in subtle behavior. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to prove it. You just live it, and slowly, people begin to adjust. Because humans are highly responsive to patterns. When they see that a certain behavior doesn't work on you, they stop trying it, and when they see that you are consistent, they begin to respect you. Consistency is key. One strong reaction followed by 10 moments of tolerance sends a mixed message. But consistent standards create clarity. And clarity forces respect. Now here's something important. You must be willing to lose people. This is where many fail. They understand boundaries. They understand self-respect. But when it comes time to enforce it, they hesitate. Because they are afraid of losing someone. But ask yourself this. If someone only stays in your life because you tolerate disrespect, is that really someone you want to keep? Real respect filters your circle. It removes those who only valued your tolerance. And it keeps those who value your standards. And that is how you build a strong environment around you. Because your environment shapes your mindset. And your mindset shapes your life. Now let's talk about discipline. Discipline is what allows you to stay consistent, even when it's difficult. It's easy to stay calm when everything is going well. But the real test comes when you are challenged. When someone speaks to you in a way you don't like. When someone tries to provoke you. When someone disrespects your time or energy. In those moments, your instincts will push you to react. But discipline allows you to pause. And in that pause, you gain control. Control over your words. Control over your actions. Control over the outcome. That pause is where your power lives. Because once you react impulsively, you lose that power. But when you respond intentionally, you strengthen it, and over time, that becomes your default state. You no longer need to think about it, you naturally remain calm, composed, and in control. And that is when respect becomes automatic. Not forced, not demanded, but earned through your presence. There is a quiet moment that changes everything, and most people miss it. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. No one applauds. No one even notices. But inside you, something shifts. You stop asking, "Why are they treating me this way?" And you start asking, "Why am I allowing this?" That question alone separates those who remain stuck from those who take control of their lives. Because the truth is, people will always test boundaries. Not always intentionally, not always maliciously, but consistently. It's human nature, and if you don't define your limits, the world will define them for you. And the world is not gentle. This is why the Stoics trained their minds daily. Not for comfort, but for strength. They understood that the external world is unpredictable, but the internal world can be mastered. And once you master your inner world, the outer world begins to lose its power over you. Now imagine this version of yourself. Someone speaks to you with subtle disrespect. Maybe it's a dismissive tone. Maybe it's sarcasm disguised as humor. Maybe it's a lack of regard for your time. The old you reacts, feels it, carries it, but the new you observes. You notice it without absorbing it, you recognize it without reacting to it, and in that moment, you make a decision. Not based on emotion, but based on standards. That is the difference, because emotional reactions are temporary, but standards are permanent. They define how you live, how you respond, and what you tolerate. And when your standards are clear, your decisions become simple. You don't overthink. You don't hesitate. You don't second-guess yourself. You act with clarity. Now let's talk about something deeper. Self-respect at the identity level. Most people try to act confident without truly believing in themselves. They try to set boundaries while still fearing rejection. They try to stay calm while internally feeling shaken. And that creates inconsistency. But when self-respect becomes part of your identity, everything aligns naturally. You don't have to force confidence. You don't have to pretend to be strong. You don't have to remind yourself of your worth. You simply know it, and that knowing is what people feel. Because human beings are incredibly sensitive to authenticity. They can sense when something is real and when it's forced. So instead of trying to appear confident, focus on becoming certain. Certainty comes from action. Every time you walk away from disrespect, you reinforce your identity. Every time you stay calm under pressure, you strengthen your control. Every time you choose dignity over ego, you elevate yourself. And over time, these small actions build an unshakable foundation. Now here's something that will challenge you. Not all disrespect is obvious. Sometimes it's subtle. It's the person who constantly interrupts you. The person who only reaches out when they need something. The person who minimizes your achievements. The person who doesn't respect your time. And because it's subtle, it's easy to ignore. But repeated small acts of disrespect are just as damaging as one big act. Because they slowly condition you to accept less than you deserve. This is why awareness is crucial. You must become aware of how people treat you. Not emotionally, but objectively. Observe patterns. Notice behavior. Pay attention to consistency. Because patterns reveal truth. And once you see the truth, you can no longer ignore it. Now comes the difficult part. Acting on that truth. It's one thing to recognize disrespect. It's another thing to respond to it, because responding often means change. It may mean distancing yourself from certain people. It may mean saying no more often. It may mean letting go of relationships that no longer align with your standards. And that is not easy. But growth is never comfortable. Comfort keeps you where you are. Discomfort moves you forward. And if you truly want a life where you are respected, you must be willing to step into that discomfort. Now let's talk about fear. Fear is the biggest reason people tolerate disrespect. Fear of losing someone. Fear of being alone. Fear of conflict. Fear of being misunderstood. But here's the truth. Every time you choose fear over self-respect, you lose a part of yourself. And over time, that loss becomes your identity. You become the person who stays silent when they should speak. The person who accepts what they shouldn't accept. The person who settles. But you don't have to stay that person. You can change that starting now, because courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to act despite it. It's choosing to stand firm even when your voice shakes. It's choosing to walk away even when it's difficult. It's choosing yourself, again and again. And every time you do that, fear loses its grip on you. Now let's go even deeper. Respect is not just about how others treat you. It's also about how you treat yourself. Do you keep your promises to yourself? Do you respect your own time? Do you follow through on your goals? Do you speak to yourself with honesty and discipline? Because if you don't respect yourself internally, it will reflect externally. You cannot expect others to value what you do not value within yourself. So the journey begins with you. Build discipline in your daily life. Keep your commitments. Hold yourself accountable. Because self-respect is built in private before it is recognized in public. Now imagine living like this every day. You wake up with clarity. You move with intention. You speak with purpose. You act with discipline. You no longer react to every situation. You no longer seek validation. You no longer tolerate what drains you. And slowly, your life begins to change. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And when you change, the way people interact with you changes too. Because they are responding to a different version of you. A stronger version. A calmer version. A more disciplined version. And that version commands respect without asking for it. At some point in your life, you will realize something that changes the way you see everything. Not everyone deserves access to you. That realization is not rooted in ego, it's rooted in awareness. Because once you begin to grow, once you begin to value your time, your peace, and your energy, you start to see how casually people can waste all three. And the truth is, most people don't even realize they are doing it. They interrupt your focus. They bring unnecessary drama. They project their insecurities onto you. They test your patience just to see how far they can go, and if you are not careful, you will keep giving, keep tolerating, and keep adjusting, until you no longer recognize yourself. This is why protecting your energy is not optional. It is necessary. Because energy is life. Where your energy goes, your life follows. If your energy is constantly drained by people who don't respect you, your life will reflect that exhaustion. But if your energy is protected, focused, and directed with intention, your life begins to elevate. Now think about this. Why do people often disrespect those who are always available? Because there is no scarcity. Anything that is always available is rarely valued. But the moment something becomes limited, it becomes respected. Your time should not be easy to access. Your attention should not be easy to earn. Your presence should not be taken for granted. And this doesn't mean you become distant or arrogant. It means you become intentional. You choose where your time goes. You choose who gets your attention. You choose what deserves your energy. And that choice is power. Now let's talk about reactions again, but from a deeper perspective. Every reaction you give is a signal. It tells people what affects you. It tells people where your weaknesses are. It tells people how to control the situation. If someone knows they can provoke you easily, they gain an advantage. But if they realize that you are not easily shaken, they lose that leverage. This is why emotional discipline is one of the highest forms of strength. Not because it makes you unfeeling, but because it makes you intentional. You don't react just because something happens. You respond because you choose to. And that difference is everything. Now imagine someone tries to disrespect you. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause. You look at them, calm and steady. No anger, no frustration, just awareness. And in that moment, something powerful happens. They feel it. They feel that they cannot control you. They feel that their usual tactics don't work. They feel a boundary they cannot easily cross. And often, without a word, the situation shifts. Because power is not always expressed. Sometimes, it is simply felt. Now let's talk about walking away. Walking away is one of the most powerful things you can do, but it is also one of the hardest. Because walking away requires you to let go. Let go of the need to be understood. Let go of the need to win. Let go of the need to prove yourself. And most importantly, let go of people who do not respect you. That's not easy. But staying in situations where you are constantly disrespected is far more damaging. Because every time you stay, you send a message to yourself that this is acceptable. And over time, that message becomes your reality. So sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is not with words, but with distance. Distance from negativity. Distance from disrespect. Distance from anything that compromises your peace. And when you create that distance, you create space. Space for growth. Space for clarity. Space for better people and better opportunities to enter your life. Now here's something important to understand. You will be misunderstood. When you start setting boundaries, when you start saying no, when you start walking away, some people will not like it. They may call you cold, they may call you difficult. They may say you've changed. And they're right. You have changed. You are no longer the person who tolerated everything. You are no longer the person who stayed silent. You are no longer the person who sacrificed self-respect for acceptance. And not everyone will be comfortable with that version of you. But that's okay. Because your goal is not to be liked by everyone. Your goal is to be respected by the right people. And the right people will never require you to lower your standards to keep them in your life. Now let's go deeper into internal strength. External respect begins with internal discipline. If you cannot control your habits, your thoughts, and your actions, you will struggle to control how others treat you. Because discipline creates structure, structure creates stability, and stability creates confidence. When you know you are consistent, when you know you are reliable, when you know you can trust yourself, your confidence becomes natural. And that natural confidence is what people respond to. It's not loud. It's not forced. It's not performative. It's real. And real always stands out. Now imagine this version of yourself again. You don't rush to respond. You don't feel the need to explain yourself. You don't tolerate behavior that doesn't align with your values. You are calm, but not passive. You are kind, but not weak. You are confident, but not arrogant. And because of that balance, people know where you stand. They know your limits. They know your standards. They know your value. And when people know those things, respect follows naturally. There is a level of strength that very few people ever reach, and it has nothing to do with physical power, status, or money. It is the strength of being unbothered. Not because nothing affects you, but because you have trained your mind to filter what truly deserves your attention. And once you reach that level, something interesting begins to happen. People stop trying to play with you, because they realize they cannot move you. Most people are easily moved. A comment changes their mood. A look makes them insecure. A situation throws them off balance. And because of that, they are constantly reacting to life instead of controlling it. But when you become unbothered, you become stable. And stability is intimidating to those who rely on chaos. Now understand this clearly. Being unbothered does not mean you don't care. It means you care about the right things. You care about your growth. You care about your peace. You care about your purpose. But you do not care about opinions that do not build you. You do not care about negativity that does not serve you. You do not care about people who do not respect you. And that selective focus is what protects your energy. Because your energy is limited. Every day, you wake up with a certain amount of it, and how you spend it determines the quality of your life. If you spend it on arguments, distractions, and unnecessary drama, you will feel drained. But if you invest it in discipline, growth, and meaningful action, you will feel powerful. So the question becomes simple. Where is your energy going? Now let's talk about control. Most people think control means controlling others. Trying to change them. Trying to make them behave differently. Trying to force respect. But that is not real control. Real control is self-control. It is the ability to stay calm when you are provoked. It is the ability to stay silent when speaking would lower your value. It is the ability to walk away when staying would cost your peace. And once you master that, you realize something powerful. You don't need to control others. Because your behavior alone sets the tone for how you are treated. Now think about this. When someone disrespects you and you react emotionally, the situation escalates. But when someone disrespects you and you respond with calm authority, the situation changes. Not because you forced it, but because you shifted the dynamic. And that is what Stoicism teaches at its core. Focus on what you can control. Let go of what you cannot. And act with discipline in every situation. Now let's go deeper into perception. How you see yourself determines how others see you. If you see yourself as someone who must be liked, you will act in ways that seek approval. If you see yourself as someone who must be respected, you will act in ways that command it. And those actions create patterns. Patterns that people recognize. Patterns that people respond to, patterns that define your reputation. Because reputation is not built in one moment. It is built over time through consistent behavior. So if you want to change how people treat you, you must change your patterns. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Consistency is what makes your standards real. Now here's something important. You cannot demand respect while living without discipline. Because discipline is the foundation of self-respect. If you break your own promises, others will not take your words seriously. If you lack consistency, others will not see you as stable. If you tolerate your own bad habits, others will tolerate treating you poorly. Everything starts with you, your habits, your mindset, your actions, and when those align, your presence becomes powerful. Now imagine this clearly. You are in a situation where someone tries to talk down to you. Instead of reacting, you stay calm. You listen. And when you respond, your words are slow, clear, and controlled. You don't raise your voice. You don't insult. You don't over-explain. You simply state your position with confidence. And then you stop talking. That silence after clarity is powerful. Because it shows you are not seeking validation. You are not trying to convince. You are simply expressing your standard. And that is enough. Now let's talk about respect in relationships. Respect is the foundation of every strong relationship. Without it, everything else becomes unstable. No matter how much someone says they care about you, if they do not respect you, the relationship will eventually drain you. Because care without respect leads to inconsistency. And inconsistency leads to frustration. So you must be willing to evaluate your relationships honestly. Who respects your time? Who respects your boundaries? Who respects your energy? And equally important, who doesn't? Because awareness gives you the power to choose. To choose who stays. To choose who goes. To choose what you tolerate. And those choices shape your life. Now let's go even deeper. One of the biggest signs of growth is no longer needing to respond to everything. In the past, you may have felt the need to reply to every comment, defend every point, and correct every misunderstanding. But as you grow, you realize something. Not everything deserves your attention. Some things are distractions. Some things are tests. Some things are simply not worth your energy. And the ability to ignore what does not matter is a form of wisdom. Because wisdom is not just knowing what to do, it is knowing what not to do. Now imagine how different your life becomes when you apply this. You stop engaging in unnecessary arguments. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop allowing small things to affect you. And as a result, your mind becomes clearer. Your focus becomes sharper. Your energy becomes stronger, and your presence becomes undeniable. At a certain point, you stop explaining yourself. Not because you have something to hide. Not because you don't care. But because you finally understand something most people take years to learn. Not everyone is meant to understand you. And trying to make them understand will only drain you. This is where true mental strength begins. When you no longer feel the need to justify your decisions to people who have not earned that level of access to your mind. When you no longer waste energy trying to be seen by those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Because the truth is, people don't always see you for who you are. They see you through their own lens. Their own insecurities, their own expectations, and no matter how clearly you explain yourself, some people will still choose to see what they want to see. So instead of exhausting yourself trying to control their perception, you focus on controlling your actions. You live in alignment. You move with purpose. You let your consistency speak for you. And over time, the noise fades. Now let's talk about something deeper, respect without words. There is a version of you that does not need to speak much, yet commands attention wherever they go. They don't interrupt. They don't overshare. They don't try to dominate conversations. But when they speak, people listen. Why? Because they have learned the power of restraint. In a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the person who chooses their words carefully stands out. The person who is not desperate for attention becomes magnetic. And that magnetism is built on discipline. Discipline in speech. Discipline in emotion. Discipline in action. Because without discipline, your words lose weight. Now imagine this scenario. Someone disrespects you publicly, expecting a reaction. They expect you to defend yourself, to argue, to match their energy. But instead, you remain composed. You look at them calmly. You respond briefly, clearly, and without emotion. Or maybe you don't respond at all and then you move on. In that moment, something shifts. The attention they were seeking disappears. The control they thought they had vanishes. And the respect they didn't give you becomes something they feel. Because you refused to play the game. This is one of the most powerful things you can learn. Not every battle is meant to be fought. Some battles are meant to be ignored. Because engaging in them would only lower your level. And your level matters. You cannot expect respect while constantly lowering yourself to match the behavior of others. So instead of reacting, you rise. You choose discipline over impulse. You choose clarity over chaos. You choose silence over unnecessary noise. And those choices separate you. Now let's go deeper into identity. The way you see yourself shapes everything. If you see yourself as someone who is easily disrespected, you will unconsciously accept that role. But if you see yourself as someone who values discipline, respect, and control, your behavior will reflect that. And behavior creates reality. So the question becomes, who are you choosing to be? Because every decision you make reinforces that identity. Every time you stay silent when you should speak, you reinforce weakness. Every time you speak with clarity and confidence, you reinforce strength. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you lower your standards. Every time you walk away, you raise them. And over time, These small decisions create a powerful transformation. Now here's something most people avoid. Growth requires letting go of comfort. The version of you that tolerated disrespect was comfortable. It avoided conflict. It avoided difficult decisions. It stayed in familiar patterns. But that comfort came at a cost. A cost to your self-respect. A cost to your peace. A cost to your growth. So if you truly want to change, you must be willing to leave that comfort behind. You must be willing to feel uncomfortable when you say no. Uncomfortable when you walk away. Uncomfortable when you set boundaries. But that discomfort is temporary. What is permanent is the strength you gain from it. Now imagine your future self. A version of you that is calm in every situation. A version of you that is respected without effort. A version of you that does not tolerate anything that disrupts their peace. That version of you is not created overnight. It is built daily, through small decisions, through consistent discipline, through repeated action. And the more you act like that version of yourself, the more real it becomes. Until one day, it is no longer something you are trying to be, it is simply who you are. Now let's talk about power. Real power is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need validation. It does not need approval. Real power is quiet. It is in the way you carry yourself. It is in the way you respond to pressure. It is in the way you remain grounded when others lose control. And people feel that, even if they cannot explain it, because true power creates presence. And presence commands respect. Now think about the people you naturally respect. They are not the loudest. They are not the most reactive. They are not the most desperate for attention. They are the most controlled, the most disciplined, the most consistent, and that is what you must become. Not for others, but for yourself. Because when you become that person, everything changes. The way you think changes. The way you act changes. The way people treat you changes. And most importantly, the way you see yourself changes. There comes a moment in your life when you realize something that changes everything. You were never disrespected because you were weak. You were disrespected because you were unaware of your power. And once you become aware of it, once you truly understand what you bring to the table, what you tolerate begins to change. Because awareness creates standards, and standards create boundaries, and boundaries create respect. Now think about this carefully. Every person who has ever been respected deeply has one thing in common. They are not easily moved. They don't bend under pressure. They don't break under opinions. They don't lose themselves trying to fit into places they have outgrown. They stand firm, not aggressively, not arrogantly, but with quiet certainty, and that certainty is what makes them different. Because in a world where most people are constantly reacting, constantly adjusting, constantly seeking validation, the person who remains grounded becomes rare, and rare is always respected. Now let's go deeper into something most people avoid. Responsibility. It's easy to blame others for how they treat you. It's easy to point fingers and say, they disrespected me. But the harder truth, the truth that leads to growth, is asking yourself, why did I allow it? That question is not meant to shame you. It is meant to empower you. Because the moment you take responsibility, You take back control. You stop being a victim of other people's behavior and start becoming the architect of your own standards. And that is where your transformation truly begins. Now imagine this. From this moment forward, you decide something simple but powerful. You will no longer tolerate anything that goes against your self-respect. Not in conversations, not in relationships, not in how your time is treated. You don't need to announce it, you don't need to explain it, you simply live it. And slowly, everything begins to shift. The way you speak becomes more intentional. The way you respond becomes more controlled. The way you carry yourself becomes more confident. And people notice, not because you told them to, but because they feel it. Now here's something important to understand. Not everyone will rise to meet your standards. Some people will fall away, and that is not a loss. That is alignment, because every person who leaves creates space for someone better to enter. Someone who respects your time. Someone who values your presence. Someone who understands your worth without needing it to be explained. And that is how your environment begins to improve. Now let's talk about peace. Peace is not something you find. It is something you protect. And you protect it by setting boundaries. By choosing what you allow into your life. By choosing who has access to your energy. By choosing how you respond to situations. Because every time you allow negativity, you disturb your peace. But every time you stand firm, you protect it. And over time, that peace becomes your foundation. Now imagine living with that kind of peace. No longer reacting to everything. No longer overthinking every situation. No longer allowing small things to control your emotions. You become steady. You become clear. You become strong. And that strength is what commands respect. Now let's bring this all together. The secret is not in forcing respect. The secret is in becoming someone who naturally commands it through discipline. Through self-control. Through clarity. And most importantly, through self-respect. Because the way you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. If you respect your time, others will respect it. If you respect your energy, others will value it. If you respect your boundaries, others will recognize them. Everything starts with you, and once you understand that, everything changes. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything comes full circle. There was a version of you that tolerated things you should not have tolerated. A version of you that stayed silent when you should have spoken. A version of you that accepted less than you deserved. But that version of you is not who you are anymore. Because now, you are aware. And awareness is the beginning of transformation. From this moment on, you move differently. You think differently. You act differently. You choose differently. You no longer chase respect. You embody it, and when you embody it, the world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. So the next time someone tries to test you, pause, remember who you are becoming, and respond, not from emotion, but from identity. Because your identity is your power. And once that power is fully realized, no one will ever disrespect you again. If this message changed the way you see yourself, then don't stop here. This is just the beginning. Subscribe to this channel now for more powerful insights on discipline, self-mastery, and mental strength. Because the version of you that commands respect, protects their peace, and lives with purpose, is built one mindset at a time. And the next level of your life starts with what you choose to learn next. Stay focused, stay disciplined, and most importantly, stay in control.